Good. Bye. Hey, I Spice. Baddie. Song's pretty hit. Only came out, what, a few days ago? Probably the first song I actually kind of like from her. Cash Cobain. Well, let's get into the mood a little bit, y'all. Before we go into the main meal of the day, of the night, of the evening. What? Wow. Give it a go. Cash Cobain. Haven't really listened to much of his stuff, but it's pretty swag. So let's just swag a little bit. Swag. It's been around for a while too, huh? He's got that mellow R&B, magnetic sound from Bronx, New York. Still can't get over Bryson Tiller's new album. Pretty good. Well, I'm gonna go into the main course in a little while. Well. What should I start with first? Get a drink first. The sign. Let's go. We go live. Let's hop on some Red Bull. Count it. Hong Kong state of mind. Trying to get this set up. As we speak, as we speak. I shall speak, I shall speak. Actually, I watched his episode getting his iPhone yesterday in Oregon a few weeks ago, last night. How many did he get? He got 5. He got 5 phones. 2 terabyte, man. 2 terabyte phone. I don't think I've ever heard a 2 terabyte phone before. Right. Let's play a little bit of D'Angelo. Rest in peace. It came so sudden. Man. What a legend. Neo Soul King. Ooh. Tough one. Right, as you can tell what I'm wearing tonight, what I'm wearing right now. Guess what I'm going to talk about today? To think that I was actually playing his stuff from the Space Jam soundtrack last week. Now it's gone. Baby. All over. Good. Right, so I'm about to hit the main story for the night. But let me just settle down with some Red Bull purple drink. Purple edition. What's up? Hip Hop State of Mind in Hong Kong on Saturday night. How y'all doing? Just chilling. Weather's cooled down a little bit finally. After all, it's been a freaking hot summer so far, man. This is Brown Sugar by D'Angelo. Legend. We sadly missed. Man, just can't believe this album. Got it for like 30 years. 30-year CD, man, you know what I'm saying? Oh. D'Angelo. All good, all good. We also saw Playboy Carti and ASAP and Kendrick a few days ago. Ooh. Lit, y'all, lit. Stage together, man. But those of you who are in Las Vegas, so lucky next weekend coming up, Complex Con. You've got Clips, you've got Yeats, I think, and you've got a couple. Oh, Young Thug. That's right, Young Thug's gonna be on. Mixing up tonight. Shit, damn, motherfucker. Right, let me just set up the screen. We will talk more later, but I want to record this next episode. Hold on. Okay. Ding 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 ding. Alright, here we go. Yo, what's up everyone? A new episode today. Now, I'm going to take a break from talking about the 90s hip-hop inspired movie soundtrack for this episode and want to actually once again go dig deeper into one of the things that I've been observing having been back in Hong Kong for the last couple of years, especially regarding the way of how the culture has moved, the music has moved and the music has moved forward, but more importantly bridging it and linking it to the rest of the world. And for the longest time now I've always been wondering the link between Hong Kong and the Wu-Tang Clan, right? And as you guys all know, Wu-Tang founder, well, spiritual leader, founder, RZA was really into the whole 香港邵氏嘅武俠少林電影 back of the 70s and 80s, right? Shaw Brothers movie. If you have watched the Wu-Tang saga from Hulu a few years back, or even dated all the way back when Wu-Tang started back in 93, 94 in New York, you would know these Staten Island natives had been glued to watching 少林電影 for the longest time, right? Now, I was probably born around that time, right? But obviously too young to understand or appreciate those type of movie from 劉家良啊、鄭少秋啊 and all those guys. But it was funny because when actually Wu-Tang came out in 93, 94, obviously I was still in Australia, thinking and hearing the story of how he was inspired by the Shaw Brother movies actually was probably one of the intriguing moments of my earlier days in getting into hip-hop, of how a Chinese movie and also the culture of 少林寺電影 could actually inspire someone all the way in New York
to have come up with a name of firstly Wu-Tang Clan, right? But more importantly, how they became a unit that they have been for the last 30 motherfucking years, you know? It's not, it's impossible. You would never have thought that, right? Now, as you can tell, all around me, Wu-Tang everywhere. T-shirt, poster. Now, I got this off the official website, okay? So legit, it's real stuff, you know what I mean? Tote bag as well, off their tour back in 2023, 2024. Now, obviously, all these are items of appreciation of how I've encouraged to people to actually, you know, listen more of their music, right? But more importantly, how come there hasn't been any real connections from a Hong Kong rapper, local hip hop scene through and with the Wu-Tang over the years? Now, just going back a little, now a couple of weeks ago, I think, you know, back I think a month and a half ago, went to Some Sobo and check out the 2-year anniversary of the amazing Play the Crew unit who were jamming and, you know, breaking and scratching and for the whole afternoon on, I think it was a Sunday afternoon, right? But throughout the sets, you know, I was talking to a couple of DJs there, Kendrick and a few others, and we talked about how some of the older sounds have been missing in Hong Kong as well, like the older hip hop sound of the 90s missing in Hong Kong as well. And you know, as they were playing Wu-Tang in as part of the mix, I was like, shit, man, you know, if you're talking about the history of Wu-Tang and East Coast hip hop in the US, and also the sound of hip hop back in Hong Kong in the 90s, that's already a connection there, right? And it's always intriguing to actually, like, obviously, again, like I said, I wasn't around then in Hong Kong. Why wasn't there anything that were actually immediately attached with the Wu-Tang in the 90s, you know? And then you've seen footage of RZA, who's been in China going to Xiulamji, and also they were here at Clockenflap back in 2023, right? But to me, that's all about performances and being on stage. Or actually, you know, when he went to China, he was a lot deeper than that, right? You know, going to the temple and everything. But from a hip hop artistic form perspective, I would have loved to have seen that journey of the past 30 years carry through, you know. And even when I was talking to the DJs, and shout out to Yeez as well, Kalo Band, for having such an amazing spot for keeping the hip hop DJ culture alive, literally, you know. And also a little bit about Some Sobo as well. Like, Some Sobo is one of those areas in Hong Kong or in Kowloon that's been, you know, to me over the years hasn't really changed too much for the last 40 or 50 years. Now, to me, it's like sort of, from, you know, if you talk about development perspective, it hasn't really changed too much. And I think at the same time, it actually also showcased some of the older elements of Hong Kong. I'm talking about, you know, those that were in the 70s and 80s are still having a remnants of what those days were like, even today when you go to visit Some Sobo, right? You know, a lot of the old boutique shops, and also there had been new shops swapping over the years and turnover and whatnot over the years, right? But the area is a brewing ground for a lot of creative and local artistic heroes, I would say, that could also be taken to the world stage, right? But again, that linkage somehow 都係冇見到係真係同世界接軌咯。I mean, if you talk about Hong Kong heritage, right there, it's all part of it, you know, in some Sobo area. But that's one side. But on the other side, I would have loved to have seen the area have progressed and you know, in terms of the living standard over there over the years as well too, right? But that's another topic on another channel to talk about. But coming back to hip hop and Wu-Tang, why hasn't there been any collaborations or even songs or even like movies? Obviously, you know, Iron Fist and all that, RZA produced that, but that's sort of on a movie front, but not really involved with Hong Kong, right? So that to me is a really mysteriously weird mystery, right? 點解一個咁同 hip hop 有咁乸大關係嘅組合，同香港有關係嘅組合，竟然喺呢30幾年係冇真正去有個扣埋一齊去創作 hip hop 嘅歷史喺香港嘅部分之一咧。So I mean, obviously, I wasn't, and I'm still sort of not really in the game behind the scene of how artists and rappers and promoters and collaborators have worked in that space, right? But then if you think about how in Japan, A-Wish is, well, literally waiting for A-Wish to, shout out to the Japanese rap queen, right? Literally waiting for her album to drop this year, which we've all known by now that has been produced by RZA, right? So, and then even in hearing her story of how she met up with RZA years ago, in talking about how she was somebody who could actually show RZA around Japan's hip hop scene. Now, to me, that's amazing, right? Because you have someone who understands the local scene and can also link with the OGs of Wu-Tang to share and showcase something, and in the end being able to actually sit down and work together as a producer and then a rapper, and I'm sure there will be tracks in English and Japanese as well, and we've seen a few tracks coming from the album already, right? Wax On, Wax Off and Butcher Shop. It's only 2 tracks, but that's been the only 2 that we've heard over the last 7 or 8 months since we have known about the project. Now, coming back to Hong Kong a little bit, there surely has to be ways to link with Wu-Tang and also link with the rappers in Hong Kong, the current scene right now. I can certainly think of a few that can, not just bridging, but like conversing and also interpreting of that era for one, but also bringing it into today's world and the future. We all know Wu-Tang is for the children, right? For God's sake. So literally, how can we bring that bridge and also getting the likes of RZA or anyone of the Wu-Tang member to come and work with the crew or anyone in this part of the world, in particular Hong Kong, right? So, you know, if there's any idea, if anyone has any idea of actually doing that, let me know. But I certainly have a couple of creative ideas to link already. You know, to me, things such as, you know, maybe we get a rapper in Hong Kong, hopefully, if we by chance can be produced by RZA as well, right? But who that would be, I have someone in mind. I'm not going to say it, but I have someone in mind who I believe can truly take the artistic form of how the Hong Kong, well, the hip hop itself, and also, you know, representing the way of how it can be portrayed artistically through the lens of music video and music creation and, you know, lyrics and also rap style, to work with Wu-Tang and create something for the current generation. I mean, I don't want this collaboration or whatnot to become something that reminds us of how Wu-Tang were back in the 1990s. I want this something to be representing now and going forward, and hopefully also allow it to forge more collaborations and connections with the US hip hop scene. You know, you've seen how China's doing it, Taiwan's doing it, Japan's doing it, Korea's doing it, Southeast Asia are doing it. and even Australia is doing it, right? So I mean, that's exactly the point, you know, the Fergs and Wu-Tang and all those guys, I'm sure they've toured to Australia multiple times in the last 20 to 30 years, right? So, but like I said, you know, touring is one part, but how do we make good cultural exchange and cultural relevance as well as artistic collaboration? You know, they could be here doing a little shoot out at the West Kowloon M Plus area, you know. And it doesn't always have to go back to the old style of Hong Kong. I would love to see, you know, it's just like when RZA did the whole Bobby digital persona, right? You know, putting him in a different edge, literally, to showcase his other creative talent as a musician and a rapper and a producer. So, and I can see that there are a lot of really cool creativity that can come out from the rappers even from Hong Kong as well too. And then some of the video clips or some of the video directions of how they have been, you know, telling their stories to the world or to the community or to their fans through their music video, to me it's a lot more popping than most of the mainstream stuff that we see in Hong Kong mainstream, right? I mean, not that I really watch those stuff, but because I know they're crap, right? But more importantly, that linkage, I think it has to happen now sooner rather than later, because time don't wait, right? You know, you've got Awish doing an album with the GOAT, RZA, but that means that they've already established that connection in Japan already, and you can tell even some of the work like Afro Samurai, full on Japanese samurai style animation back in the 90s, right? And again, how do we, now obviously in Hong Kong we don't have those type of films in movies anymore, but that doesn't mean producers or movie directors or creative directors from Hong Kong cannot create something with New York to build something that is of one, cultural relevance, two, putting Hong Kong's hip hop scene on the map internationally, and three, taking some of these young rappers from town to experience the world and then keep connecting with the rest of the world. In Cantonese, in English, whatever, you know. Language to me is one part of it, but the other is how to tell a story, right? So we'll see. And I think it'll be fun if it actually happens, you know. There's so many things that can be done, like, and other than just the standard stuff, and we don't really always have to be, well, I think anyway, have the physically here present to connect. If they can come here to do Clockenflap back in 2023, I'm sure there's people behind the scene that could actually do a lot more. You know, speaking of that, I'm so glad I can bring this over. This is what I'm talking about, you know. And thanks to the good soul that gave me this little picture from Clockenflap a few years ago, man, you know. To me, this is fucking historic. I doubt that we'll be able to get the whole, well, most parts of the Wu-Tang Clan to come over to Hong Kong to do this again. But you never know, right? You never know. But that's exactly my point. You know, if you look at how some of the members of the crew have been doing their, like, individual project this year, why not one of them work with someone here to produce something or to create something? Start off with from a music perspective and then grow, you know. I think this is something that we need to make it happen as well too. And I'm sure some of the local talents or rappers or whoever are all in for it, you know. But this is good.
And then when you think about if RZA was in Japan, maybe, or actually, I mean, it could be New York, recording and producing the album for Average, that means that he is ready to go deeper into this part of the world to create. You know, he is so unique when it comes to not just part of the hip hop history or part of the East Coast offering, but it's just the way he thinks, the way he leads, and the way he creates. It's very different from most of the others. You know, he seems to be someone that thinks 10 steps ahead of everyone else. Maybe it's the way he think as well. You know, as he was learning about the craft of hip hop and also studying the movies of FRESTYLZ and FRESTYLZ. I mean, to be honest, I haven't seen I don't know all of the ones that he was really into, but there's plenty in that era. You know, if you watch the Wu-Tang saga, right, they were literally throwing in videotapes, recording them one of the movies, you know. But I think this is interesting because if you draw the parallel of what he did with FRESTYLZ movies to when I was a kid watching LL Cool J's, MC Hammer, and you know, Heavy D's, NWA, Dr. Dre, Snoop, Pac, Biggie, and all those. You know, when I was glued to MTV in Melbourne to watch them, to how it actually made me into such a, I guess, hip hop head over the years. You know, it's almost similar. I mean, obviously I'm not him. I'm shit, you know, but it's about influencing the way of how something that you enjoy as an entertainment or as music or something that has actually changed the way of how you see and operate and create and believe in doing something different, right? And then just going back to talk about the Fader Crew DJs the other month when I went down to Samsung Bowl. And I think, you know, to me it's not so much about, oh, let's just keep the old sound and throw out the new. You know, if you think about Clips, how they've sort of semi reinvented themselves this year, right? With Let God Sort Them Out, and then those who are in Las Vegas will be very lucky to see Clips next weekend at the Complex Con Las Vegas, right? But to me, you know, imagine some of the Wu-Tang members comes over here and then just jam in Hong Kong for a month or a few days. You look at what Ferg's doing in Japan. You know, he's been there since the Force Festival, right? So that's been what, a good 2 weeks. He was just on Pop Yours with Average on stage just now with Lupe Fiasco, right? So you see, there's a lot of this year. I mean, especially a lot of American rappers have gone to Japan, and a lot of American rappers have been touring around Asia as well. And then we've got Ray Shrimp coming at the end of October for the Halloween festival thing, right? And we just need to have more of that. And obviously, Travis next weekend in Macau, god damn it. And then he'll be in Shanghai and in Tokyo, in Seoul as well over the next couple of weeks. So that's gonna be crazy. So this kind of almost conclude my talk on bridging Hong Kong hip hop and the Wu-Tang.
I really love to also understand and hear your point of view on how you see it. Like if you happen to be American and you live through the era of Wu-Tang and knowing the stories of how they were inspired by the movies from Hong Kong, from Shaw Brothers. Did you know that? Well, I'm sure you did. But did you then also think about, well, how the hell and what if there was a scene in Hong Kong, hip hop scene in Hong Kong? What would that be like? Did you ever explore in Chinatown in New York or LA or Melbourne or wherever to understand more about the Shaolin Temple and all that stuff that RZA was so glued to when he was a kid? Did that influence your ways of thinking whether there's any Asian hip hop? And obviously you've got Jin that pioneered that way back in 20 odd years ago, right? So it's all, to me, cultural relevant when it comes to bridging people around the world, regardless of what the state of the world is, you know. But to me, at the grassroots or at the entertainment and cultural exchange level, I see there's a lot that we can do to make this something of, I wouldn't say legacy, but it can be continuous, you know. I always say, you know, culture isn't something that happens once a year or an event or a show, right? I mean, those are important, but they're moments. To me, these moments, if you have the frequency of these moments that can become consistent and long term, that's great. But nobody can afford $1,000 Hong Kong, that's a month per weekend to watch shows every weekend, right? I mean, shows ain't cheap. So we need to, and with live streaming, like what the fuck I'm doing right now, this is maybe is an alternative to engage different artists and rappers and producers and musicians and OGs and young Gs and young blood and whatnot through the airwaves to collaborate and to do show and to talk and to chat and to connect. I think that's really important. Until the next episode, see ya. Whoa. Right now, so turn on some music for a little bit. Travis. Now who's ready for Travis Scott? Come on. Show your hands. Show your hands, show your hands, show your hands. Feel a bit down. Beat in the house.
We in your house. Hi, 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 hi. Tự nhiên? Oh. Oh, so yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop now.